So I wanted to continue this video by painting the engine bay, but it's absolutely frigid out. I think it's -4 with a wind chill of like -15. It's currently 57 degrees in the shop. The heat's been running non-stop, but opened the door for a delivery and well, now it's 57 in here. Painting is not quite great when it's this cold. We do have other parts, so let's jump back into the interior and check out some goodies that we got. All right, first things first, we got a box. We got a car. Let's see where I'm at right now. It's been a hot second. Yeah, we got the steering wheel, pedals, I got the seat in there. I got my first little mock-up of power, brake bias, and this is where the CAN keypad will go. I'm adding a few more things to this. I'm gonna 3D print another one. I don't like how vertical it is. I'm gonna add the trans park brake onto the other side as well. What else we got in here? We got a battery box over there. We got fire suppression back there. We got all the fuel lines run underneath the car. So the last thing missing is the dash. Ditch the OEM dash. And we've gone with this, I would say universal BMW dash. It's definitely BMW style, but I got this from Fiberlabs. It was like 350 bucks, honestly, for a fiberglass dash. I gotta paint it something because that black is gonna reflect the sun like crazy. I mean, it weighs maybe 3 or 4 pounds. It's pretty sweet. I'll probably have to trim this out just to get the steering rack in. My AIM dash will go in here. It's got the nice BMW hood. It's got a nice flat thing that I can use for gauges if I wanted to or anything. My end goal would be to run 2 dashes. On the second dash, I would like all the pressures, temperatures, everything like that, non-important things. And the only thing I want over there is just speed and RPM. My assumption is probably isn't just gonna plug in super easy. I did leave these tabs that I had before, and I think I'm just gonna put like push pins, like almost like the hood pins in both sides of those. That will make getting the dash in and out really easy. And height adjustment, they just thread, so that will be super easy. And in the middle, I'll probably use those 2 OEM mounting tabs and make a small bracket to come up and grab the bottom of the dash. Let's see if we're even close. Alright, expected. Got a cut for the cage. The overall width looks pretty good. Let's measure the cage and do some cutting. Okay, so I think the easiest way for me to go about this is we measured from the dash forward, comes to about right here. So I think I'm gonna just hole saw cage hole there, and then I'll cut some straights and hopefully just be able to slip this thing in at an angle and lay it down. Alright, first cuts are in. Kendra's taking the dogs to the vet, so I'm back old schooling it by myself.
Getting closer?
Yeah, so it's done, but the handle for the OEM steering rack to go up and down hits over here. Alright, I'll just take a tad bit off right there and then we should be. That's fine. That's what I wanted. Wow, it really makes the car feel a lot smaller. Oh yeah, perfect. Can't see anything in the dash. I'm gonna need one of those GT wheels. We're jumping back onto the inside of the vehicle and we're gonna do some brake lines today. So let's take a look at the setup. As you guys know, I'm running the tilt and hanging pedals, so we need to get from the master cylinders over to the reservoir and the ABS pump. So I'm going to mount the ABS pump there. It's the easiest for me just to get line routing. The reservoir is going to go, I got a bracket 3D printed to go on the crossbar that will sit under the dash. You won't really be able to see it, but luckily the dash comes out with 2 push pins very quickly, so I can get access to that. I was really limited on space with that because it has to be higher than the Masters, and I do have the pedal box kind of high up in the car. Not a lot of room, but we'll get it done. The reason that this is kind of going to suck is because I had to make all of these. As you know, this is Mike's pedal box. We both are running Tillans, different versions, but we have the same master cylinder style. So one thing we wanted to do this year was make everything common and service friendly. Hard lines are going to show up today, so I can start routing hard lines. We got to go through the firewall to the front, and then we'll run to the back of the car and go through the body somewhere over there for the rear. Easier said than done. There's so many dumb fittings you have to connect. I need to go from AN here to the bottle, which is also AN, so that's not bad. That's going to be all soft or stainless steel braided line, flexible line. And then we need master cylinder again to ABS pump, which is metric thread, so we need some adapters for that. Also, I need to put pressure transducers for the front and rear, so I need to make adapters to run those before the ABS pump as well. I'm just gonna I'm putting one on the front inlet and one on the rear inlet. What we need to do is we have 2 4ANs. Those are gonna be the feeds. So those are gonna go from the bottle to the inlet of the master. I need to make sure the lengths are right, so that way it can go in this car or in Mike's car. And then the second one, we got to go pressure from the master, so that will be these ones. I'm going to the ABS module. Mike doesn't have ABS, so this is just going to go to a junction of where he tees off on his hard lines. I think the first thing to do would be I got to mount the reservoir. I got some 3D printed brackets, so I'm going to set you guys down. We're going to mount that right up on the crossbar. Sick. All right, we hop back out. I didn't really like how it was fitting up there, so I ended up ordering 2 shorter lines. I also forgot I'm going to be running the pressure transducers on the ABS feed for the front and rear. So this takes up another few inches. It was too long how I had it. These are some low dollar motorsports. They're 0 to 3000 PSI. This will allow us to read brake pressure to the front and rear brakes, so we can adjust brake bias, pressures, all of that stuff. More data the better. Pop these on the ABS and get these shorter lines routed to it. All right, that's a much better fitment. Got both pressure transducers there. Now it's time to start doing some hard lines. I've made a few brake lines. So far so good, they're looking pretty snazzy. I've done one rear, one front. I figured I'll show you guys the process and what tools we use and how easy it is to make brake lines. We're using some stainless steel brake line. I got this off Amazon, to be honest. We have a hydraulic crimping tool. You definitely want a chamfer of some sort. It helps with the flares. This is a BMW, so it uses a stupid bubble flare. I have some weld wire. I'll show you how this helps in a second. Cutters, different benders, fittings, and a grommet. First thing we're gonna do is grab the weld wire, actually. And this is what we're gonna use to mock up the line. Weld wire bends really easy, it takes shape, it holds itself, and it's basically the same diameter as brake line. So we'll do something like that, and that's how we're gonna start. Alright, now this is the shape we get to make. Now we'll always add like an inch or two because it's easier to cut at the end than it is to add material at the end. Wow, it's almost exact. Not that I didn't plan this. Let's say this didn't work, or how did I get that piece? It comes as a big spool from good old Amazon, so we can straighten this out by hand. Normally I would do that, and then I'd take my string and I would measure and cut. This piece already works. Let's crimp some lines. Critical to brake lines is your brake line fitting. Make sure you get the right one for the right diameter. Always put the fitting on before you crimp it. We have a nice crimp tool with our correct size die. Pop it in. This one has a bunch of different tools. Make sure we're using the correct bubble flare tool. To put a dab of oil on the end. And voila. We have a very nice bubble flare. Now time to start bending. Now we just take the piece we're trying to match and just match it up. All right, so I made a mistake. I was making that line, so we're gonna do the inside line, I guess, first. All right, it took a few more days than I would have liked. Just missing fittings. You gotta Amazon some stuff. I also underestimated how much line we actually needed. But I figured since we were in here, I might as well also do the fire suppression line as well. So we added that. We quickly 3D printed some of these brackets just to get some aesthetic. Probably put some riv nuts in the chassis just to hold these down permanently, but we got everything finally routed. Came out really good. Fire suppression goes up. 3D printed some brackets to zip tie it to the crossbar. You have a nice jog under the reservoir. We'll tee off and go into the engine bay, so that way, God forbid there is a fire, it'll point at like both of the headers. Come around, hits my feet. You gotta keep your feet safe, and this one points back up towards me. So yeah, all the braking system is done now. The only thing I have left to do is actually fill and bleed the system, but not gonna do that yet. 3D printed a nice new center console, so we can have the brake bias on here. The last piece, I guess, is this aluminum one to hold the gas pedal, but we're waiting on machine shop to finish that up. Now that I've gone through and made all these pretty brake lines, which I have to say, I'm glad I took my time. I do think it came out really, really well, but now let's cover it up with the dash so that you won't be able to see any of my hard work.